Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Halfback Dynasty. My name is Brendan. We are joined today with our co-host Tyler, the legendary Gator Sens. Tyler, how the heck you feeling, my friend?
Feeling defeated, Brendan. My boy, my dark horse for the fantasy MVP, only lasted about a week. I'm hoping Trey Lance as a human being's doing okay. Devastating injury, kid that is not established. Very risky long term now, but just feeling defeated, man. Had a couple really bad showings in our main league. I mean, who would have thought I might challenge you for the 1-1?
Do I own your first? I don't think I do.
No, somebody else does. That's
awful, dude. I own
don't.
like 7 other firsts. That's like the one I don't own.
The guy who owns it actually hit me up when Trey Lance got hurt because he knows how much I like him. And he's like, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. That's brutal." He's like, "Your team looks rough." And I was like, "Yeah, I just need to get my first back from you." Radio silence. Nothing.
Well, I'll have to hit them up, see if I can maybe trade like 2 firsts for that. Because you and me are for sure probably the 101 and 102, my friend.
My team just looks bad, man. I need Dobbins on the field quickly.
Yeah, who cares? You got some big names coming up, though. Like next year, you'll be fine. This time next year, you'll be good.
Well, plus without Allen and Godwin, I got a bunch of injuries, man.
Yeah, it's just unfortunately is what it is. You know,
what it is, man.
Football. It is what it is.
Now I got the pitcher from Dazed and Confused, my only quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, baby.
Trevor Lawrence, I love it. You know, he's looking pretty decent. I'm not gonna lie. Like some people say they're still, not happy with his production, but honestly, I see a slow and steady growth path with him. Yeah. I mean, you can't expect quarterbacks to come out the gate swinging. Like very rarely do they do that. Justin Herbert is the near example right there. But I think Trevor Lawrence is starting to gain some stability and some ground in the NFL, man.
Yeah, he's looked good, and surprisingly, I mean, Christian Kirk's been, man, maybe exactly what he needed to kind of have a more steady wide receiver. I mean, their core is not great or chocked full of big names, but Zay Jones has been showing up. It's been interesting, man. They spent a lot of money this offseason, and they definitely look better. Mm-hmm. I'd like Mr. ATN to get involved, but man, that's been a slow go.
It's weird. I'm not sure what the deal is. I mean, maybe he's still recovering from his foot injury. Maybe they want to roll with James Robinson until they feel like they're for sure contending. I really don't know, but I agree. You got to get ETN out there. And that chemistry with Lawrence from college could really, really, change the game up. And I was so high on ETN. I still am now. But let me tell you, you feel a lot more comfortable holding him if you're rebuilding than if you're contending right now. That's for sure. Or in a redraft league. My goodness.
Absolutely, man. I mean, having ATN and Dobbins with my team 0-2, I still feel like, hey, come the midpoint, could have 2 pretty solid running backs. Just got to stay patient.
You got to stay.
What happens,
my friend? Hey, going back to Trevor Lawrence real fast, he's averaging like 250 passing yards. He's got 3 touchdowns on the year, only 1 interception. I mean, for not being on the greatest team, I'll take that. So I think he's for sure going to jump up in the rankings, and he's a guy that could honestly get to that tier where Mahomes, Allen, Herbert are at. I think he's next up. So if you got time, buy him. Buy him before he blows up. This time next year, it's going to be really pricey, 2-3 first-round picks. So love to see it. Let's talk about some players that maybe we were really excited about, or players that, exceeded expectations, or players that maybe didn't. I'll throw a name out there, considering we were speaking about this player on our last episode because I had just traded him live. Aaron Jones, starting to feel that was a mistake as a contender, but, now I got 3 2024 first, but he destroyed the Bears, dude. He owned the Bears as well, threw up like 30 points. Is this a guy that you want on your team contending?
I mean, this is kind of what you and I talked about, that if games Aaron Jones puts it all together, I mean, he could be a huge piece for a contender, but it's interesting you brought him up, Brendan, because my article on our Patreon, literally I highlighted Aaron Jones as a player to move because I would be looking to move him high. if you look at his stats, it's not even remotely he can't sustain that. What he had like 13 rushes for 130 yards or something. I mean, obviously he broke a big one, which, you know, when you made that trade live on air, that's what you and I highlighted, is he has the ability to break a big one. But look at week 1. Obviously Green Bay got crushed in that game, but you know, he has an incredibly high ceiling. But I also think weeks when it's not really going well for him, they're just going to hammer Dylan, you know? So it's natural reaction to have made a trade, and sometimes they blow up in your face just that first week and you're like, man, why did I do that? But it's long term, man. Let it play out. I still think, I don't know, Jones is a decent asset, but if you were, even if you're contending, if you hold Jones, pass on a first round plus for him, and you don't win the title, you're going to regret holding him. So, as you and I have talked about, it's extremely hard to win a title. You got to get lucky 3 weeks in a row. You have one bad week, you're done. It's over, you know?
Yeah, that's how I was looking at it. Plus I was looking at once, because, you know, that 2024 first that I took for him, I took, I think, a second as well. I can't recall, but it was something like that. And, that gave me 3 2024 firsts. And my whole thought process is, once teams start to fall to the bottom and realize they can't compete, maybe they'll start selling some of their older guys for a little bit less expensive prices. So I was thinking that maybe I could try to combine those 3 2024 firsts and really make a move and collect and get some guys that will help me contend rather than just Aaron Jones. So I still think it was the right move. I'm 2-0 in that league, and I still feel pretty good about it. And like you mentioned, he's going to throw up a week where he has 7, then he's going to throw up a week where he has 40. It just is.
Yeah, it is. He'll be up and down. And I tell people all the time, you know, answering questions and whatnot, that it's important to remember that although it's a long way out, that pick will be on the clock someday.
Yeah.
And Aaron Jones will be 30. Yeah, Aaron Jones will be 30 by the time you make that pick. And I mean, again, by then you're 2 years later, you're not going to remember the trade. You may or may not have won a title anyways, and you'd much rather have the pick.
That might be Archie Manning, brother. Who knows?
Yeah, it might be, man.
I don't know when he's coming out, but hey, very well could be. Let's get it. Let's get it. So cool. You know, let's talk about a couple running backs that might have raised some concern. I know we're 2 weeks in. You never want to panic too early, but you also want to prepare. You know, in a couple weeks, by week 4 or 5, that's when some outlooks can possibly change, and roster constructions or roster builds may look different. First guy that comes to mind, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, I'm sure, is scaring a lot of people, especially in redraft leagues. For dynasty leagues, you know, you have to expect that he's at that cliff. He was injured last year. They give him like 400 carries a year. It was evident that this could happen now, actually, you know, maybe 1 or 2 more years, but the guy's like 27. How old is he? 26, 27? He's
29.
Around there. He's 29.
29.
Holy cow. I did not know that. But at this point, do you just hold? Do you try to sell maybe for a first? What do you do here with Derrick Henry in Dynasty?
Man, you and I are like on the same wavelength, because he was also in my article.
Nice. I did not read it. I did not read it by the way. I'll read it.
No, I would get out. I literally have a line in there or something that you know, it's over for the king. It's just time to move on. You know, I think even holding him isn't worth it, because you're going to feel like you have to start Derrick Henry, because there will be a game or 2 or 3 that he does have a great game or gets in the end zone 3 times, because that's just kind of the player he is. But I think it's going to be all those other weeks that, you know, this kind of segues into another thing I talked about, that Tennessee is now trending toward maybe a top half pick in a quarterback heavy class. You know,
look good, man.
You know, Ryan Tannehill is not your long-term answer. You have to find out if Willis is your long-term answer, because if you're at pick hypothetically 8 and they have a chance to draft one of those quarterbacks, you have to know if Willis is your guy or not. So I think they're even going to turn away from Tannehill sooner rather than later, see what they have. And I think that makes it even worse for Henry. I mean, we saw in the Monday night game, Willis looks to run a lot. I mean, if Willis moves to quarterback, the only thing defenses are going to fear is Henry. So yeah, I think it's past time. It's well past time to get out of Henry. I know everybody looks at Henry as a kind of different physical specimen, which he is, but I'm sorry, with that mileage, that usage, and his age, it's over. It's done. He had a ton of carries on Monday night and did
Dude, he did not look
with
good.
them.
But
No, he
granted,
looked
it wasn't
slow. He
it
looked
wasn't
slow.
his fault though. I mean, he was getting blown up.
He was
getting blown up, but still that's his game, run between
Yeah.
the guards and tackles. But he did look slow.
He looks old and
noticed
slow,
it.
man. I look at Delvin Cook and Derrick Henry very similar. I think there's gradual cliffs, but I think those two, when the wheels come off, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be fast. And I think you're in the start of Derrick Henry becoming that running back that all of a sudden we're going to come out of this season and be like, man, Henry's just done, after watching him dominate for so long. But no, I would take a second for Henry now happily.
Wow. I would pay a second. I mean, might as well risk it. Well, if I was rebuilding, honestly, probably keep the second because the first isn't going to, or Derrick Henry's not going to do anything for you. But yeah, I mean, this time next year, he might be a Todd Gurley. He might be out of the league, dude. You just don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, if you can get, you would shoot for probably a second plus a young asset, something like that is a much, much better return, much easier to swallow. But
yeah, I think he's worth more than a second. Man. I think he's worth more than a second in the general dynasty community as of now. However, you're right. You need to capitalize. If you're going to move him, you got to move him now. If he strings together 4 more really bad games, well, you're halfway through the season. No contenders even going to want to touch him.
It's over, man.
Not worth the risk. You got to trade him for a guy like, Drake London, who's showing out. What rookie running backs have been showing out? None. But
none yet.
I would take Breece Hall. I would take Travis Etienne. I would take any of those guys who can start rising over Derrick Henry immediately.
Yeah, I'm trying to put it, I'm a very RB needy team in our main league. And if somebody offered me Henry for a second and Olave, I wouldn't even consider making that trade for Henry. No chance. Because I have Olave in London, as you mentioned. I wouldn't trade London straight up for Henry. No chance.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Well, there you go. You heard it here. You got to start deciding what you want to do with King Henry. It's crazy to see these cliffs happen, players that you've watched for, 5 years. But it happens.
It's unreal, man. Quickly. He's been unreal, but it's over.
Yeah. So kind of switching gears to the NFL aspect. Let's give a round of applause to the Titans, though. I actually feel like they knew they wouldn't be that good this year because one, they traded AJ Brown to get significantly younger, Well, I don't know how much younger is Treylon Burks, like 2-3 years.
Like a couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, so not significant, but they must have known that this wouldn't have been that big of a year. They must have known they got less competitive, or their roster wasn't as competitive in the AFC because the AFC is absolutely stacked, man. But you drafted Malik Willis in preparation. Derrick Henry's coming back from an injury. Let's be honest, the Titans had to have known that his cliff was coming too. If we see it as a fantasy football coach, as a fantasy football manager, these guys see it in their programs in real life. The defense looked a little shaky, especially against the Bills. I mean, that could just be due to the Bills are just freaking unbelievable right now.
Pretty good.
But I don't know, man. I think the Titans kind of had a heads up that they were not as competitive, and I think pretty soon they're going to start focusing on the future. So, very interesting to see what happens.
The future could be here pretty quickly. I think the only good thing, if you want to risk on Derrick Henry, they have nothing behind him. So it's not like they're going to showcase a rookie. I mean, they have Haskins, but
he's not very good. He's awful.
Yeah, I don't think he's like their future running back. So I think even if you want to gamble, major gamble, I think Henry will still get a lot of work because there's no other option, But I think obviously Treylon Burks is coming on a little bit. I think they're going to try and force feed him, but Henry will still get work. So, if you're a legitimate top 2 in your league and you can get Henry for a second, I still understand making that move. If that turns into Henry, who hypothetically sucks the rest of the year, you only move the 210. Who cares?
It's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah. So
second,
but an early second, no thanks.
So let's pivot and talk about arguably one of the best quarterback performances that we'll see this year from a guy who we probably didn't expect to have this type of performance. Tua Tagovailoa absolutely shredded. That Baltimore Miami game was nuts, man. That was one of the most exciting games I've seen in a long time. Both offenses were incredibly potent, but we have to take note here. Should the Tua haters shut up about whether or not Tua was the guy in Miami after a performance like this? 470 passing yards, 6 teeters, dude. Gosh, dang.
Yeah, it's that's a really interesting question. I think no, they don't, because he was not good in week 1. So yeah, I think it's very interesting. There was a bunch of people talking about that on DLF today, and putting Tua in this category that it's like it's one game, guys. And one of the more veteran posters pointed out he's had 2 or more touchdowns twice ever. Like,
that's not good.
So you got to pump the brakes a little bit. But hey, I understand why people are very, very excited about Tua coming out of that week. I mean, I'm the league that I'm contending in, Brendan. I got to ask you a question. It's a 1 quarterback league, but it's also like our main league. It's 6 points for all touchdowns. So quarterbacks are weighted heavily.
Pretty valuable.
I have a guy who's in a complete rebuild, essentially, who just lost. His starting quarterback was Trey Lance. Behind Lance, he has Mariota, so nothing. And he's 0-2. His target is 2024, is what he said. I thought about offering him again. I'm a legit contender. I'm not a big Barkley fan, but it is a start 2 RB. I was going to offer him Tua and Bateman for Barkley. Try to sell a little high on Tua, but also
I think that's fair. I mean, I
think it's fair.
I think Barkley, as long as he doesn't get injured, he's back, baby. He's back. He looks explosive. He looks good. He looks like he's going to carry that offense. Bateman looks pretty dang good too, man. It looks like Lamar Jackson is really building rapport with Bateman. I think it's fair if they view that quarterbacks are weighted heavier. I think Bateman alone this time next year could have similar value to Barkley. Eventually cross, Weatherford and Barkley moving down. Those guys I think will eventually cross in rankings. And then Tua, 50-50 chance that he's even the quarterback in Miami by 2024. I would say it's a great offer. If there's a lot of scarcity at the running back position, I think it might take a little bit more just because of the fact that Barkley's put up 2 pretty solid weeks.
Yeah, let me go through my roster, Brendan, while we're on here, just so you can it'll be a good something for everybody to think about. So my starters it's a start 2 RB, like I said. Lamar Jackson, Swift, Najee Harris. My starting wideout is Jalen Waddle, Irv Smith Jr. My flexes are Amon-Ra St. Brown, Bateman. I have Devonta Smith. I have Jerry Jeudy. I have Jameson Williams, who's not playing yet. Damon Harris coming off the bench. So basically, I would sub out either Bateman, Smith, Jeudy, whomever my last flex would be, and plug in Barkley.
Is this a 10 or a 12 team?
12, man. My team's stacked.
That's a roster, brother. That's a roster.
I put together this was the only time that I went out and I drafted and or traded for all my Alabama guys that's worked out.
Nice. Team Alabama, roll tide. Wait, so do you have any future picks? Any 2023 picks?
I don't trade any picks in this league ever.
Wow. So you have all your future picks.
All
and
my
you have
picks.
That roster?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude, I think Barkley could do you well there. One, it gives you that third stud RB. And it gives you a little more of that blanket, right? I would really try to see if you can keep Bateman. Maybe the guy's high. I know you don't want to trade Jeudy, but I would much rather try to trade Jeudy first. And then probably I would even do like Jeudy, Tua, and Damian Harris for Barkley. I'd much rather do that than Bateman. I think Bateman's the real deal, dude.
Okay. What do you think about do you think this is even close? But Tua, Damian Harris, and like Josh Palmer? Not enough.
No,
not
one
enough.
quarterback, no, not enough.
So it'd have to be like Jeudy or Devonta Smith.
Yeah, I do the same
like
thing
that.
with Devonta Smith as Jerry Jeudy. I'd be hesitant to give up Bateman, but you can't argue right now that Barkley looks good. However, you're gambling that man is not going to get injured.
For sure.
That's a big gamble. Tua, I could really care less about giving up in a one quarterback league, but if Barkley gets injured, man, Bateman's probably going to throw up. He's probably going to average like 70 passing yards and a touchdown every other game as a floor, dude. Especially because Lamar Jackson's connecting in the air, dude. So,
well, this is one of those classic builds where it's like, am I just doing something to do it? Like, I don't think I need to make that trade at all, but my thought process is, I have Lamar Jackson, Tua, Mac Jones, which obviously Mac Jones does not look good. So if anything happens to Jackson and Tua keeps going up, do I hurt myself there?
Yeah, let's be honest. You probably don't need to make a move.
No, I probably don't.
Wait till an injury happens, if an injury will happen, because that's the biggest thing that you can do to ruin your roster is to make moves you don't need to, and it's going to come back to haunt you. And unless you have a game plan, which let's be honest, you and I don't really have game plans in a sense that sometimes we just trade to trade, or we trade because it's easier to trade this piece at this time, but then we're going to trade that piece at that time. Yeah. So, let's say on the table, we're trying to move Jerry Jeudy, Rashad Bateman, and Devontae Smith. Well, I might trade Rashad Bateman for Saqoun Barkey because I know no one in the league will take Bateman, but then I'm going to try to trade Saqoun Barkey and Jerry Jeudy for somebody else. It's all calculative game.
It's all when to do it. I've only made 3 total trades in this league in 2 years.
Wow.
But the trade I made right before week 1, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Aged very, very well. I traded in Njoku and Darnell Mooney for St. Brown in a second.
Jeez, bro. That person must have been really high on Mooney.
Very high on Mooney and very high on Njoku because they had almost no tight end.
Nah, bro, Njoku sucks, dude. I didn't want to bring you down when you had the hype. You had the hope. You had the Njoku hope.
I always do.
You're 4 in a row, dude. Hey, I don't blame you. It is what it is at this point. But
he's been my starting tight end for years.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad trade. Mooney was good last year. He was fine, and St. Brown was good. You kind of expected him to have a similar year, not what he's doing now, but he's the real deal. Honestly, that's a guy. Amazing. That's a guy that his name isn't that valuable yet. He's a guy that you should go trade a first for easily. Because
he looks fantastic.
Dude, he's their weapon, man. And with DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson and Jameson Williams, Detroit's offense is going to keep getting better and better. That's a team that's going to start taking over the NFC North, in my opinion, next couple years. So
they look pretty solid, man.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think you got some thinking to do, and hopefully you can land your guy, man. We're rooting for you. Hey, let's pivot here real quickly, and I'm going to give you a couple hot takes here of players that I think should be started in week 3. These are players that, yes, some of them are big names, some of them aren't. I could tell you start Jonathan Taylor every single week, obviously, right? There's no fun in that. But check this out. I was actually going over some quarterback rankings and some matchups, and I don't know if this is bold of me to say, but based on what we've seen in week 1 and week 2, and considering week 3 matchups, I'm going to tell people that they should honestly start. You ready? This is crazy. They should start Marcus Mariota over Russell Wilson this week. I'm going to say it. I don't think Russell Wilson has looked good. The fans are booing him up there. How high club, bro. Kind of crazy.
Not good.
But Marcus Mariota is facing off against the Seahawks, and he has actually looked pretty decent. Right now, he's a QB1. He's fringe QB1 right now.
Yeah, he looks all right.
Hey, I don't mind it at all. Last week, he threw 200 yards for 2 tutties. Granted, he had 2 picks and 2 interceptions. But, he had 6 rush attempts. Week 1, he had 12 rush attempts for 72 yards and a touchdown. I mean, this is a guy
that's big in fantasy, man.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. If he's still performing pretty well, I mean, you've got a few weeks with him, right? Sure. They're not going to throw Ritter in there if they're not feeling comfortable. No. So I think he's a great, great player that you could start over Russell Wilson if you're not confident in Russell Wilson. Prior to the show at the running back position, it pains me to say, but I think you got to start Cam Akers, dude. Cam Akers against the Cardinals, I think, is a phenomenal choice here. A lot of people probably have Akers on their bench now, but you could fire him up. Week 2, we actually saw a big jump in carries. He got 15 carries and 3 targets. Week 1, he got I think 3 carries, something super odd.
Yeah, it was 3, literally.
It was 3. So here's the deal, though. With the Cardinals, man, One, the rushing defense hasn't been that good through 2 weeks. 250 rushing yards. It's 125 rushing yards per game. They've given up 3 touchdowns on the ground already. And
Wow.
they give up on average 5 yards per carry. I mean, come on. That's insane. 5 yards per carry is really bad for a defense. I think you should fire him up, get him ready to go. If he misses, well, hey, come find me.
Yeah, I mean, even Akers might succeed there.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? How could you not? And you know what? Maybe they were trying to, figure out the mental with Akers, and maybe they figured, give Darrell Henderson the big bulk of the work week 1. Maybe Akers gets hungry. Who knows? There's got to be a reason why they didn't start Akers and let him perform that well. Let's see. Do you have any wide receivers that you think you should start or sit? Any surprises this week?
Man, it's a good question. Yeah, I think Ayuk's going to surprise a little bit this week with a full game with old Jimbo under center.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could be a nice start. I honestly think he's going to go over 100 yards. I don't know if he gets in the end zone, but I think he's a good play.
Mm-hmm.
I also think, man, based on what we saw last week, I'm starting to think Drake London's
he's good.
You got to start him every week.
He's good.
And
I like Drake London.
I know Chris Olave didn't do a ton with it, but I don't know if most people even know, but he had 13 targets last week.
Wow. No,
yeah,
I did not even think about that.
Yeah, so I think he's a good play too, because, I mean, Michael Thomas is going to start requiring more attention because he's getting in the end zone from defenses. So, yeah, I'd feel pretty comfortable rolling those 3.
Sure.
And I mean, again, Ayuk's not had a great start, but he seems to do this every year. He's just slow, and then he just turns it on. So
he's good. It's just
I
don't know what's happening. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know why. It's such a weird case, man. Ayuk is so much talent. He has so much talent.
He's got a lot of talent.
So who knows? But I like that. A wide receiver that I think it would be a good flex option this week. Possibly, a wide receiver too, if you are low in the trenches right now on a good roster. Jacoby Myers against the Ravens. Now, keep in mind the Ravens defense is going to be skewed because they just gave up 6 touchdowns to Miami, right?
Yeah.
But you got to realize, let's be honest, Mac Jones should be a better passing quarterback than Tua Tagovailoa. And I know his weapons aren't as good, but I mean, Jacoby Myers, 10 to 12 points, almost a lock, man. And in some leagues, that's great for a flex option, especially later in the year when there's a lot of injuries or there's a lot less people on the waivers, man.
Yeah, he's his number 1 target for sure.
No doubt. No doubt. I also really like anybody going up against the Titans. The Titans just look bad. I think the Raiders are going to blow them out, and I don't think the Raiders are that good. So expect a huge week from Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow. I don't really know what's going to happen in tomorrow night's game, the Thursday night game. You think any of these guys on the Steelers or the Browns are a safe play?
I mean, Chubb, obviously, I would feel comfortable rolling Chubb. I would roll Hunt if you're absolutely desperate at like RB2 or whatever, your format is. The Steelers, no, man. I mean, as a Najee Harris manager, you got to play him. The volume's there, but that offensive line is so bad. And the receivers, no, I mean, Johnson's kind of the same way as Harris. You feel like you have to play him.
Yeah.
But I would not even consider Claypool or Pickens again until we see anything. I mean, Claypool's been overrated for 2 years now. He's just not a reliable option. But
God, all those Pittsburgh wide receivers are divas, man.
Oh,
they either
absolutely.
drop a lot of balls or they make TikToks, dude. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, good call. Not talking about Pittsburgh, but yeah, the TikTok, the Juju love this offseason, not looking good so far.
It's definitely not looking good. I was looking at his stats earlier.
Yeah, it's awful.
Gosh,
it's just not that good. He's just not. But no, tomorrow night's game, it's kind of ridiculous, but I almost, unless it's a really good player, I don't play players on Thursday because it's usually just a disaster of a game,
Yeah, always bet the under.
Yeah, so I would be looking elsewhere, but again, I mean, Chubb, Harris, Johnson. Yeah, I mean, you got to play him, I think.
Mm-hmm. How you feel about those guys is kind of how I feel about DK Metcalf and DJ Moore. Now, I'll be honest, I've been trying to pawn those guys off in multiple leagues and doubling up. Like, I offered Metcalf and DJ Moore for DeAndre Swift, and it got declined. And, I get it. But these are two young guys who, the dynasty value might be lower right now, but they're still young enough. They have a chance to still get a great quarterback. Let's face it, the best wide receivers in the league year in, year out are like from ages like 27 to 30. So
yeah,
I'm still holding on to them. I'm figuring it out, but I can't start them confidently, man.
No, Metcalf is a wide receiver you absolutely can't start. And I think his value is coming down slightly. He used to be one of the most overrated assets for me in Dynasty. We all know who number one is after 2 weeks, but I think Metcalf in the right system or the right QB could jump back up. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They're so young. They're both like 25 years old. There's still a lot of time. If you're contending, I would not expect them to really perform that well this year, at least as of yet. I would maybe try to cash out on the hype and maybe try to sell them for, a contending running back or a better contending wide receiver, because there still is value. Last guy I'll leave with you. You mentioned your favorite player of all time, Kyle Pitts. My goodness, dude. I can't believe it. I really can't believe that. One, Drake London is really outshining Kyle Pitts. And two, they got nobody else. I just really can't believe he's not balling out, man. It's tragic, but listen, we saw this coming from a mile away. We probably haven't talked about a player as much that we don't like as Kyle Pitts on this show. So
yeah, in closing for me, Brendan, again, in my article, I'm sorry, Kyle Pitts' value is absolutely absurd. He's the most horrendously overvalued asset in Dynasty. If you're holding Kyle Pitts right now and can move him for 3 firsts,
do it.
Mm-hmm.
Then go get Gerald Everett.
Yeah. If he turns into Kelsey, he turns into Kelsey, but it's not looking like he's going to. And I'm sorry, Kyle Pitts' value to me doesn't even make sense anymore. It really doesn't.
Here, folks. You heard it here. Folks, that is all. Thank you so much. We got to get going. Just remember, you're in this for life.